Captain Eric Monroe stood on the bridge of the UES Sentinel, his eyes fixed on the main screen. The alien ship looked like a dark, jagged knife against the blackness of space. It had appeared near Jupiter's moon Europa without warning, just like the two ships before it in the past few weeks. And like those ships, this one had immediately started firing on the human outpost. Eric ran his hand through his short brown hair. He was tired. The crew was tired. Everyone was tired of these attacks that came without reason or warning. "Captain, the alien vessel is targeting our defense platforms," said Lieutenant Olivia Grant. Her fingers moved quickly over her control panel. "They've already destroyed 2. All civilians on Europa are now in the safety bunkers." Eric nodded. The people would be safe for now. The bunkers were built deep into the icy moon's surface. But the defense platforms were another matter. Humanity had worked hard to set up those defenses. Each loss was a blow. "Any response to our communication attempts?" Eric asked, turning to look at Communications Officer Peter Johnson. Peter shook his head. "Nothing, sir. Just like the last 2 times. They don't answer our calls for peace." The bridge of the Sentinel was quiet except for the soft beeps of the equipment. The ship was humanity's newest defense vessel, built after the first signs of alien life had been discovered. It was meant to be a ship of peace and exploration. Now it was on the front line of what might become a war. "Sir, I'm receiving a message from Admiral Susan West," Peter said suddenly, his eyes widening as he read the incoming transmission. "Earth Defense Command is authorizing Protocol 867. Eric felt his heart beat faster. Protocol 867 was new. It had been created after the first 2 alien attacks. Both times humans had used only enough force to drive the aliens away. They had shown restraint. They had been polite. "The Admiral says it's time to stop being nice," Peter added. Eric took a deep breath. "Very well. Tell weapons to power up. The graviton cannons, all of them." Weapons Officer Daniel Harris looked up in surprise. "Sir, the graviton cannons would completely destroy their ship. We've never used that level of force before." "That's the point, Lieutenant Harris," Eric said firmly. "Apparently, we're done being polite." Daniel nodded and turned to his station. "Powering up graviton cannons 1 through 6, ready in 30 seconds. The alien ship continued its attack, destroying another defense platform around Europa. The moon was home to over 5,000 people now. Scientists, engineers, families. The outpost had been established 20 years ago, the first permanent human settlement beyond Mars. "Sir, I'm getting readings of the alien weapon systems," Science Officer Natalie Fisher reported. "They're more advanced than the previous ships. They've adapted their technology since the last attack." Eric wasn't surprised. Each alien ship that had come had been slightly better than the last. It was as if they were testing humanity, seeing how much they could take. "Graviton cannons at full power," Daniel announced. "Ready to fire on your command." Eric stood still, for a moment. This would be the first time humans had completely destroyed an alien ship. The first 2 had been allowed to retreat after taking damage. It was the human way, to use only as much force as necessary, to be measured, to be civilized, but being civilized hadn't stopped the aliens from coming back stronger. "Target their main weapon systems first," Eric ordered. "Then their engines. I want that ship completely disabled." "Yes, sir," Daniel replied, inputting the targeting commands. "Captain," Olivia called from her station. "I'm detecting energy buildup in the alien vessel. They're preparing to fire something big, possibly aimed at the Europa Colony Center." Eric's face hardened. "Fire graviton cannons. Full power." The Sentinel shuddered slightly as the 6 graviton cannons fired simultaneously. On the main screen, beams of intense blue-white energy lanced out toward the alien vessel. The alien ship tried to evade, but the graviton beams adjusted their course, tracking their target with perfect precision. The first 2 beams hit the alien's weapon arrays, causing explosions that tore through the outer hull. The next 2 struck the engines, and the final 2 hit what appeared to be the ship's central section. The alien vessel shuddered, then began to break apart as the graviton energy disrupted the molecular bonds holding the ship together. In less than 10 seconds, where there had once been a threatening alien warship, There was now only floating debris. The bridge was silent. No one had expected the destruction to be so complete so fast. "Status report," Eric said quietly. "Target completely destroyed," Daniel confirmed. "No signs of escape pods or survivors." Eric nodded slowly. "Scan the debris. I want to know everything we can about that ship and who sent it." As the crew began their tasks, Communications Officer Peter approached the captain. "Sir, Admiral West is sending new orders. She wants us to broadcast a message toward the direction these ships have been coming from. The message has been prepared by Earth's unified government." "Let's hear it," Eric said. Peter played the message on the bridge speakers. It was simple and direct. "This is Earth's final warning. Stop attacking or we stop pretending to be polite. What you have witnessed is a fraction of our capability. Return with hostile intent, and we will respond with our full strength." Eric nodded his approval. "Send it on all frequencies, and add the visual record of what happened to the alien ship." "Yes, sir," Peter replied, returning to his station to carry out the order. Science Officer Natalie approached the captain next. "Sir, I've been analyzing the attack patterns of all 3 alien ships we've encountered. There's something strange about their behavior." "What do you mean?" Eric asked. "They attack with increasing strength each time, but not with overwhelming force. It's as if they're testing us, seeing how we respond." Eric frowned. "Like they're probing our defenses?" "Exactly," Natalie said. "In nature, predators often test their prey before committing to a full attack." The implication hung in the air. If these were just tests, what would a full attack look like? "Sir," Olivia called urgently from her station, "long-range sensors are detecting unusual activity at the edge of our solar system. Multiple hyperspace signatures forming." Eric moved quickly to her side. "How many?" Olivia's face paled as she read the data. "At least 20 ships, sir, and they're much larger than the ones we've encountered before." The bridge fell silent. Everyone knew what this meant. "Notify Earth Defense Command," Eric ordered. "Tell them we have multiple incoming hostiles, and—" He paused, considering his next words carefully. "Tell them it appears our message was received, but not in the way we hoped." As the crew rushed to prepare for what was coming, Eric stared at the view screen showing the approaching threat. Humanity had just shown it wasn't weak. They had stopped being polite. Now they would have to show they weren't bluffing about their strength. "All hands to battle stations," Eric announced shipwide. "This is not a drill. The real test of humanity was about to begin." Dr. Megan Collins stared at the data on her screen. The language patterns were starting to make sense after 3 years of study. She pushed her glasses up and tucked a strand of blonde hair behind her ear. The basement lab beneath the Rocky Mountains was cold, but she barely noticed. The alien messages hidden in their attack patterns were finally clear to her. "They think we're prey," she whispered to herself. The door to her lab slid open. Admiral Susan West walked in, followed by President William Rogers and Secretary of State Laura Bennett. They had flown in from Washington after Megan's urgent message. "Dr. Collins," Admiral West said, "you called this emergency meeting. What have you found?" Megan stood up. "I've cracked their communication system. It was hidden in the energy patterns of their weapons fire. They weren't just attacking us. They were sending messages to each other." President Rogers frowned. "What kind of messages?" "Hunting messages," Megan said. She pressed a button on her computer. The large screen on the wall showed a series of energy wave patterns. "Their entire civilization is built on conquest. They're hunters. They send small forces against potential threats to see how they respond." "And how do they judge these responses?" Secretary Bennett asked. Megan pointed to different parts of the pattern. If the target responds with measured force, they mark it as prey. As weakness, she looked at the 3 leaders. "And that's exactly what we've been doing. We've been responding with just enough force to drive them away. To them, that looks like prey trying to seem dangerous without actually being dangerous." "Admiral," West nodded slowly. "That's why I authorized Protocol 867. We needed to show real strength." "What happens when they decide a species is prey?" President Rogers asked, his face grim. They send their full invasion fleet, Megan replied. The attacks we've seen are just tests, probes to judge our capabilities and resolve. Secretary Bennett shook her head. But we've always believed in using only the force necessary, in showing restraint. It's what makes us civilized. And that's exactly why they keep coming back stronger, Megan said. In their culture, a true predator shows overwhelming force immediately. Our restraint reads as weakness to them. So we need to stop pretending to be polite, President Rogers said quietly. Yes, Megan agreed. We need to make it clear that our restraint isn't weakness. It's a courtesy they've now used up. Admiral West's communication device beeped. She checked it, and her face turned serious. The UES Sentinel has destroyed an alien scout ship with our new graviton cannons. Captain Monroe reports that long-range sensors are detecting at least 20 larger ships entering the system. President Rogers stood straighter. So they've classified us as prey. It appears so, the Admiral confirmed. The question is, what do we do now? We show them they've made a mistake, Megan said firmly. A critical mistake in their judgment. President Rogers turned to Admiral West. What defensive capabilities do we have in place? The Admiral pulled up a holographic display of the solar system. We have the normal defense grid that they've already seen, but we also have the Artemis Protocol. Secretary Bennett gasped. The stealth platforms? You're suggesting we use those? Admiral West nodded. They were built for exactly this scenario. A full-scale invasion by a technologically advanced enemy. Megan looked at the hologram. The normal defense grid was shown as bright points of light around Earth and the major colonies. But she knew the Artemis Protocol was much more. Hundreds of hidden weapon platforms scattered throughout the solar system, invisible to all known detection methods. Will it be enough? She asked. Admiral West met her gaze. The Artemis platforms aren't just defensive weapons. They're a statement of our resolve. They can target and disable every ship in that alien fleet simultaneously. President Rogers paced the small lab. The decision to deploy Artemis isn't one I take lightly. It reveals capabilities we've kept hidden for decades. If we don't use it now, sir, Admiral West said, we might not get another chance. The president stopped pacing and looked at each person in the room. Dr. Collins, you understand these aliens better than anyone. What message would the Artemis Protocol send to them? Megan thought carefully. Based on my understanding of their culture, a display of overwhelming force that neutralizes their fleet without destroying it would send the strongest possible message. It would say that we are not prey, that we could destroy them but choose not to, that our restraint is a choice, made from strength, not weakness. President Rogers nodded. Admiral West, prepare to deploy the Artemis Protocol. But I want a clear message sent to the alien fleet first. One final warning before we act. Yes, sir, the Admiral responded. Dr. Collins, I need you to help craft that message in terms they'll understand, the President continued. Make it clear that what they've seen so far is our politeness, not our full capability. Megan nodded. I'll need access to the communication systems on the frontline ships. The message needs to be sent in both our language and theirs. As they prepared to leave the lab, Megan's computer beeped with an alert. She quickly checked the incoming data and felt her blood run cold. The alien fleet has accelerated, she announced. They'll reach Jupiter's orbit in less than 6 hours. That's much faster than we expected. Admiral West immediately activated her communication device. This is Admiral West. All Earth Defense Forces go to Condition 1. Prepare for enemy contact. The Artemis Protocol is now authorized. As the others rushed out, Megan stayed at her computer. She needed to craft the perfect message, one that would make these predatory aliens understand exactly who they were dealing with. On her screen, she began to type, "This is Earth's final warning. What you have witnessed is our restraint, not our limitation. Attack again, and you will learn the difference." In space aboard the UES Sentinel, Captain Eric Monroe received the new orders from Earth Defense Command. The Artemis Protocol was no longer a last resort. It was now their first line of defense against the coming storm. "Sir," Lieutenant Olivia Grant called from her station. The alien fleet has changed formation. They're spreading out to surround the outer defense perimeter. Eric nodded. They think they know all our defenses. They're in for a surprise. He opened a channel to the entire ship. All hands, this is the captain. Earth Defense Command has authorized the Artemis Protocol. We are to hold position and prepare to coordinate with the stealth platforms when they activate. As the crew prepared for battle, Eric stared at the approaching alien fleet on the main screen. Humanity had been polite long enough. Now it was time to show these aliens what humans were truly capable of when threatened. The real message was about to be delivered. The alien fleet moved through space with purpose. 27 warships, each one larger than any human vessel, approached the orbit of Jupiter. Their dark, angular shapes looked like predators ready to strike. On the bridge of the UES Sentinel, Captain Eric Monroe watched the main screen with steady eyes. His ship was positioned near Europa, part of the visible defense network that the aliens had already seen and tested in their earlier attacks. "Time until they reach our position?" Eric asked. Lieutenant Olivia Grant checked her display. 45 minutes at their current speed, sir." Eric nodded and turned to Communications Officer Peter Johnson. "Any update from Earth Defense Command?" "Yes, sir," Peter replied. "Admiral West confirms the Artemis Protocol is ready. They're waiting for the alien fleet to commit fully to the attack before activation." "And our role?" Eric asked. "We're to transmit Dr. Collins's message when the aliens are in range, then hold position. The Sentinel will coordinate the visible defense while the Artemis platforms handle the real response." Eric looked around at his crew. They were tense but ready. Everyone understood what was at stake. If the Artemis Protocol failed, Earth would face an enemy that saw humans as nothing but prey to be conquered. "All stations, final checks," Eric ordered. "Weapons, make sure our standard defense systems are fully operational. They need to believe we're fighting with everything we have." "Yes, sir," Daniel Harris replied from the weapons console. "Sir," Science Officer Natalie Fisher called out, "I'm detecting energy buildups in the lead alien vessels. They're preparing their weapons." Eric straightened his uniform. "Put Dr. Collins' message on standby. We'll transmit as soon as they're in range." The minutes passed slowly. The alien fleet grew larger on the screen as they approached. They moved with confidence, spreading out to surround the human defenses around Europa. "They're entering weapons range," Natalie reported. "Energy readings indicate they're targeting our defensive platforms first, just like the scout ships did." "Transmit the message," Eric ordered. "All frequencies, both languages." Peter nodded and activated the transmission. Dr. Collins had crafted the message carefully, using both human language and the alien dialect she had decoded. The words appeared on a small screen near Eric's chair. "This is Earth's final warning. What you have witnessed is our restraint, not our limitation. Attack again, and you will learn the difference." The alien fleet showed no reaction to the message. The lead vessels fired their weapons, and 2 of the human defense platforms exploded in silent bursts of light and debris. "They're not stopping," Olivia said, her voice tense. "They wouldn't," Eric replied calmly. "They've already classified us as prey. They expect us to fight back with the same level of force they've already seen." The alien fleet continued its advance, destroying more defense platforms as they came. They were now fully committed to their attack. Their formation spread throughout the space around Europa. "Sir," Peter called out. "Incoming transmission from Admiral West. The message is one word, Artemis." Eric nodded. "Acknowledge the transmission. All hands brace for proximity energy discharge." Throughout the solar system, hundreds of stealth platforms that had been dormant for years suddenly powered up. These weren't simple weapons. They were the culmination of human ingenuity, built in secret over decades. The platforms were invisible to the alien sensors. Some were hidden in the rings of Saturn. Others floated in the asteroid belt. Many were disguised as small moons or space debris. Together, they formed a web that covered the entire solar system. On Earth, in the deep command center beneath Geneva, Admiral Susan West gave the final order. "Initiate Artemis Protocol." All across space, the stealth platforms activated simultaneously. They didn't fire explosive weapons or lasers. Instead, they emitted precisely targeted graviton beams, invisible to the naked eye but devastating in their effect. Aboard the lead alien vessel, Supreme Commander Krithvak was watching the human defenses fall when his ship suddenly shuddered. Warning alarms blared across the bridge as the ship's systems began to fail one by one. "What is happening?" he demanded of his crew. "Unknown energy signature targeting our weapons and engines," his science officer replied, voice rising in panic. "All systems failing. The energy it's everywhere." Krithvak moved to the main sensor display. What he saw made his blood run cold. Every ship in his fleet was experiencing the same systems failures. Their weapons were disabled. Their engines were shutting down. And the humans had yet to fire a single shot from their main fleet. On the UES Sentinel, Eric and his crew watched in awe as the Artemis Protocol unfolded. The alien fleet, moments ago so threatening, now drifted powerless in space. "Status of the alien vessels?" Eric asked. Natalie checked her readings. "All their major weapons and propulsion systems are disabled. Life support and basic functions remain operational. They're effectively stranded, sir." "Any sign they're trying to self-destruct or launch smaller craft?" Eric asked. "No, sir," Natalie replied. "They appear to be in complete disarray. I'm detecting numerous communication attempts between their ships, but their main systems are too damaged to launch any kind of counterattack." Eric nodded and turned to Peter. "Transmit the second message." Peter activated the communication system once more. The message, again prepared by Dr. Collins, was direct and clear. "Your forces are neutralized. Your ships are disabled. This is not the full extent of our capabilities. This is restraint. This is politeness. Should you choose to continue hostilities, our next demonstration will leave no survivors. We await your response." The bridge fell silent as they waited. Minutes passed. Then, a signal came through. "Sir," Peter said, surprise evident in his voice. "I'm receiving a transmission from the alien command ship. It's in our language." "Put it through," Eric ordered. The voice that came through the speakers was strange, clearly alien but speaking carefully formed human words. "Humans of Earth, we misunderstood. We request discussion." Eric exchanged glances with his officers. It had worked. The show of overwhelming force coupled with deliberate restraint had changed the aliens' perception of humanity. "Respond that we accept their request," Eric said. "Inform Earth Defense Command that we have established first communication." As Peter sent the message, Olivia looked up from her station. "Sir, Admiral West is contacting all ships. The Artemis Protocol is being maintained, but diplomatic channels are now open. Dr. Collins is being brought to Geneva to lead the first official contact team." Eric nodded and finally allowed himself a small smile. "It seems we've made our point. Humanity is not prey." The alien fleet hung disabled in space, their weapons silent. The hunters had become the hunted, and now they wanted to talk. Earth's final warning had been delivered, and for the first time in their history, the aliens had listened. 3 days after the alien fleet was disabled, Dr. Megan Collins stood in the grand meeting hall in Geneva. The room had been prepared for the first official contact with the alien species now known as the Vraks. Megan smoothed down her formal blue suit and tried to calm her racing heart. "Nervous?" asked Captain Eric Monroe, who stood beside her. After the successful defense operation, his ship had been chosen to escort the alien representatives to Earth. "Wouldn't you be?" Megan replied with a small smile. "I've spent 3 years studying their language and culture from fragments. Now I'm about to meet them face to face." Eric nodded. "You did well. Without your understanding of their mindset, we might have continued responding with measured force. We might now be facing a full invasion rather than a peace talk." Admiral Susan West joined them, looking sharp in her formal uniform with all medals displayed. "The Vraks delegation is about to arrive. President Rogers will enter after they're seated." Megan took a deep breath. "What's the status of their fleet?" "Still disabled but stable," the Admiral answered. "We've allowed their ships to restore life, support and basic functions, but weapons and propulsion systems remain offline. The Artemis platforms are still active, monitoring every move. The doors at the far end of the hall opened. 6 tall figures entered, escorted by human security officers. The Vraks were even more impressive in person than in the grainy images from previous encounters. They stood over 7 feet tall, with angular bodies covered in iridescent scales that shifted color with each movement. Their faces were reptilian, with vertical pupils and large eyes, and no visible ears. They wore simple black garments that seemed to be part of their military uniform. The lead Vraks, identified as Supreme Commander Krithvak, moved with surprising grace for his size. His scales had a distinct golden tint that the others lacked. Aliens were guided to their seats at the large circular table in the center of the room. Moments later, President William Rogers entered with Secretary of State Laura Bennett and several other government officials. Everyone took their places at the table. President Rogers spoke first. On behalf of Earth and all human colonies, I welcome the representatives of the Vraks. We are here to establish understanding between our peoples. Dr. Collins operated the translation system she had developed. The Vraks listened through small devices in their hands. When the translation finished, Krithvak responded in his native language, which the system translated into English for the humans. We accept this meeting, the alien commander said. We have questions. Megan nodded to the president, who gestured for her to speak. This was why she was here, to bridge the gap between such different species. What questions do you have? Supreme Commander, Megan asked, speaking slowly to help the translation. Krithvak's vertical pupils widened slightly. Your species showed minimal defense capability in early encounters, then revealed hidden strength when challenged. This is not normal behavior for prey or predator. Explain. Megan chose her words carefully. Humans do not categorize other, intelligent species as prey or predators. We believe in measured responses. We use only the force necessary for the situation. Inefficient, another Vrak stated flatly. Shows weakness. No, Admiral West said firmly. It shows restraint. It shows civilization. Krithvak made a gesture that Megan recognized from her research as indicating confusion. If you possess superior strength, why not display it immediately? Why allow attack? President Rogers leaned forward. Because we hoped to avoid conflict altogether. Because we believed communication was possible without demonstration of force. The Vraks delegation conferred among themselves in low tones. Krithvak turned back to the humans. Your Artemis weapons. They disabled our fleet without destruction. You could have eliminated all ships. Why didn't you? This was the key question, Megan knew. The answer would define the relationship between humans and Vraks moving forward. Because that is not who we are, she said simply. Humans have the capacity for great destruction, but we choose to use our strength with purpose and restraint. We disabled your ships to end the threat, not to end your lives. Krithvak was silent for a long moment. In our history, no species with superior position has shown such restraint. The strong consume the weak. This is natural law. Captain Eric spoke up. Perhaps there is more than one natural law. Perhaps strength can be shown through mercy, as well as through force. The lead Vrax's scales shifted to a deeper gold color. You treat us not as prey, even when we are defeated. This is new concept. We want peaceful relations between our species, Secretary Bennett said. Trade, cultural exchange, mutual benefit, not conquest. What guarantees do we have, asked another Vrax, that your restraint will continue? That these Artemis weapons will not be used against our homeworlds? President Rogers answered with conviction. The same guarantee that we have that you will not return with a larger fleet. Trust must begin somewhere. We choose to begin it here, today. The meeting continued for hours. The Vraks asked many questions about human history, about wars between human nations, about how humans had moved past seeing strength as the only virtue. Megan and the others answered honestly, not hiding the darker chapters of human history, but emphasizing how humanity had grown. As the formal meeting drew to a close, Krithvac made an unexpected gesture. He placed both hands flat on the table, palms down, and lowered his head slightly. Megan gasped softly. In her research, she had never seen this gesture in any Vrax communication. "What is it?" Admiral West whispered to her. "It's a sign of respect," Megan whispered back. "But more than that, it's an acknowledgement of equal status. I've never seen it in any of their historical records when dealing with other species." Krithvac spoke again. "The Vrax Dominion recognizes Earth and its colonies as sovereign territory. We withdraw our hunting rights to this system. We request formal diplomatic relations." President Rogers nodded solemnly. "We accept your recognition and also request formal diplomatic relations with the Vrax Dominion." As the meeting ended and the Vrax delegation was escorted out, Captain Eric turned to Megan with a questioning look. "Do you think they really understand? Or are they just retreating to regroup?" Megan watched the aliens leave. "I think they're genuinely shocked. Their entire worldview is built around predator and prey relationships. We just showed them something entirely different, a species that could destroy them but chose not to. That's revolutionary for them." Admiral West joined their conversation. "Revolutionary enough to last?" "That," Megan said, "will depend on what happens next. Trust takes time to build. But today was a good first step." As they left the meeting hall, news was already spreading throughout Earth and the colonies. Humanity had faced its first major alien threat, and had prevailed not just through strength but through the careful application of that strength. They had shown the galaxy that humans could be formidable when provoked, but preferred peace when possible. The real work of building relations with the Vrax was just beginning. But Earth's message had been delivered and understood. Humans were neither predator nor prey. They were something the Vrax had never encountered before, and that made them both fascinating and frightening to the alien mind. 6 months had passed since the first official meeting between humans and the Vrax. In that time, much had changed. A small Vrax delegation had remained on Earth, while human representatives had been invited to visit the nearest Vrax outpost, at the edge of the solar system. Captain Eric Monroe stood by the large window in the new Earth Vrax Cultural Center in Geneva. The building had been constructed specifically for ongoing diplomatic relations. Its architecture blended human and Vrax design elements, with high ceilings to accommodate the tall aliens in spaces that felt comfortable to both species. "Admiring the view?" asked Dr. Megan Collins as she joined him. Eric smiled. "Just thinking about how much has changed. 6 months ago we were preparing for war. Now we're hosting cultural exchange programs." Megan nodded. "It's been an intense 6 months. The Vrax are quick learners, though they still struggle with some of our concepts." "Like mercy," Eric said. "Yes, and cooperation without hierarchy. Their society is built entirely on dominance relationships." Megan checked her tablet. "The Vrax ambassadors will be here soon. This is an important day." Today marked the signing of the first formal treaty between Earth and the Vrax Dominion. It had taken months of careful negotiation, with Megan playing a key role as the human expert on Vrax culture and language. Admiral Susan West entered the room, accompanied by Secretary of State Laura Bennett. Both women looked tired but satisfied. "The President will arrive shortly," the Admiral said. "The Vrax delegation is on their way from their quarters. How are you feeling, Dr. Collins?" "Nervous," Megan admitted, "but hopeful. The treaty is a good start." Laura Bennett smiled. "More than a good start. It's unprecedented. The Vrax have never signed a non-aggression pact with another species before. They've only ever conquered or been conquered." "They're adapting," Eric observed, "learning that there are other ways to interact." The doors opened and the Vrax delegation entered. Supreme Commander Krithvac led the group, his golden scales gleaming under the lights. Over the past months, humans had learned that the changing colors of Vrax scales indicated their emotional states. The deep gold color Krithvac now displayed was a sign of calm confidence. Behind him came 5 other Vrax, including Selth Moore, who had been appointed as the first official Vrax ambassador to Earth. Selthamore's scales had a blue-green tint that humans had come to associate with intellectual curiosity, a trait that made her perfect for her diplomatic role. The Vraks had also brought along 3 humans who had been staying at their outpost as part of the exchange program. One of them, Dr. Ryan Patel, hurried over to Megan and Eric with excitement. "The Vraks outpost is amazing," he said quietly. "Their technology is like nothing I've ever seen, and they've been surprisingly open about sharing it." "Really?" Eric asked, surprised. "I wouldn't have expected that," Ryan nodded. "I think our approach shocked them so deeply that they're reevaluating everything. Selthmore told me that my questions about their propulsion systems would have been met with execution in the past, but now they see knowledge exchange as potentially beneficial." President William Rogers arrived, and everyone took their places, around the large circular table that had become symbolic of Earth-Vrax relations. The circular shape had been suggested by Megan, as Vraks traditionally used angular, hierarchical seating arrangements that clearly showed rank and dominance. The circle represented equality, a new concept for the aliens. The president spoke first. "Today marks a historic moment for both our peoples. The non-aggression and cultural exchange treaty between Earth and the Vraks Dominion represents a new path forward, not as enemies or competitors, but as galactic neighbors." When the translation finished, Krithvak responded. His English had improved over the months, though he still used the translator for complex discussions. "The Vraks Dominion signs this treaty with new understanding," he said. "For many cycles we have known only the law of dominance. Earth has shown another way exists." Selthmore added, "Our scholars are still studying the concept you call mutual benefit. It contradicts much of our history, but the evidence of its value is becoming clear." The formal signing proceeded with both President Rogers and Supreme Commander Krithvak placing their marks on the document. When completed, the group moved to a larger hall where other officials and media representatives waited. As they walked, Megan found herself beside Selthmore. The Vraks ambassador spoke softly, in careful English. "Your warning worked," she said. Megan looked up at the tall alien. "Our warning? To stop attacking or you would stop being polite," Selthmore clarified. It was perfect communication for Vraks understanding, clear threat backed by demonstrated capability. Megan smiled slightly. "Yet we didn't follow through with destruction when we could have." This was the true lesson. Selthmore's scales shifted to a thoughtful blue. Power restrained by choice is something new to us. Some in the Dominion still do not understand. They see Earth as dangerous. They wish to build bigger weapons. "And what do you think?" Megan asked. "I think bigger weapons would not have saved our fleet," the ambassador replied simply. "Your Artemis system was hidden until needed." Impressive strategy. In the main hall, the treaty signing was announced to applause. Human and Vraks representatives stood together on the stage, an image that would be broadcast throughout Earth's colonies and to the Vraks' homeworlds. Later, at the reception, Eric found himself talking with Krithvak. The Supreme Commander had requested this conversation specifically. "Your ship," the alien said. "The one that destroyed our scout vessel. You commanded it." "Yes," Eric confirmed. "The UES Sentinel." Krithvak's scales rippled slightly. "Good decision. Strong response. If you had not shown true strength then, we would not be here now." Eric considered this. "We didn't want to destroy your ship. We wanted to end the attacks." "Yes. This distinction." The alien seemed to search for words. "This is what we are learning. Force used with purpose beyond dominance." He made a gesture that Eric had learned indicated respect. "You will teach our military leaders this concept?" "Of course," Eric replied, "as part of our exchange program." Across the room, Megan watched this interaction with satisfaction. The path forward would not be easy. Centuries of Vraks culture couldn't change overnight. But the foundation had been laid for something unprecedented, a relationship between different species based on mutual respect rather than fear or dominance. President Rogers joined her. "Dr. Collins, your work has been invaluable. Where do we go from here?" Megan smiled. Now comes the interesting part. We've established that we're not prey. Next, we show them we can be partners. As the reception continued, human and Vrax representatives mingled, still cautious but increasingly comfortable with each other. Earth's final warning had opened a door not to conflict, but to understanding. Humanity had demonstrated that true strength lies not just in having power, but in knowing when and how to use it. And somewhere in the vast darkness of space, the Artemis platforms remained vigilant, a silent reminder that Earth's politeness was a choice, not a necessity.